किसी से फर्क नहीं पड़ता लोगों से। मैं बाहर, घर से बाहर बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग माइंडेड बंदा हूँ। ये अलग बात है कि मेरे
Hello, Prabhkar, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We'll start in another 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And like,
This is not good.
Very good morning to everyone. I'll be very happy to welcome you all for the third day of National Webinar Series on Immunity and Infection Biochemical Approaches for Therapies. Today, we have two speakers and we have two sessions, and the two speakers are Dr. BT Prabhkar and Dr. Siddaraju MN. The first session is scheduled from 11 to 12, and the speaker of the day is Dr. Prabhkar BT, who is a faculty member at Kuvempu University, Shimoga. He is going to speak on slacking the neovessels sprout through natural products. And the second session is from 12 to 1, and the speaker is Dr. Siddaraju MN. He is from University College of Mangaluru, and he is going to speak on understanding autoimmune arthritis and osteoimmune crosstalk. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker of the day, Dr. BT Prabhkar. Dr. BT Prabhkar is a very good of mine. I know him from last 20 plus years, and he is an eminent scientist and a very good researcher. Presently, he is working as an assistant professor at Siddaraju Science College in the PG Department of Biotechnology, and he has his own research laboratory, which is named as Molecular Biomedicine Laboratory. And he graduated from Mysore University in MSc Biotechnology in 2007, and then he obtained his PhD in 2001. He completed his MSc, and in 2007 he completed a PhD in biotechnology. And before that, he has a vast experience at working at CFTRI, and then he moved to University of Illinois for postdoctoral research fellow, where he worked for about 1 year, and then he worked to University of Illinois at Chicago, and he stayed there for about 3 years, and he worked on a lot of pharmacology, cancer biology, and the drug in targeting angiogenesis and apoptosis, and he's an excellent research work, and he published more than 40 to 50 papers in a very well-known reputed journals, and he has an average impact factor of the journal from 5 to 10, and then he has an H index of more than 25, and then the I-10 index is 27, and the RG score in the research grade is 31.16, and he has a plenty of experience in the field of angiogenesis and apoptosis in cancer biology, and he has driven a lot of search in designing a therapeutic drugs from the synthetic as well as from natural product to find out the way to tackle various different carcinoma and tumors. And he has a very well established laboratory who is working with both in vitro and in vivo models. And he has plenty of projects sponsored by DST, DBT, ICMR, CSIR, and UGC, and he has about 7 projects that have been sanctioned worth of more than 2.5 crores. And his laboratory is well equipped, and he is well designing with a lot of collaborations from and as well as outside. So it's my pleasure, and I'm so happy to invite Dr. Prabhkar for hacking the neovessels sprout natural products. So Dr. Prabhkar, sir, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Pramod, for a brief introduction. And it's a kind of like overwhelming embarrassment for me. Still, I would like to thank the Davangere University, as well as Department of Biochemistry, Davangere University, as well as my fellow friend, Dr. Pramod, as well as all the faculty members of Davangere University for providing him an opportunity to share the knowledge what I have in this field. With the permission of the host, so I can start my sessions. Shall I start? Dr. Pramod, can I start? Hello. Hello, Pramod. Can I start? Hello.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Please start,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So very good morning to all once again. So today I'm going to share the knowledge what I have in the field of like angiogenesis, like particularly on the like how exactly it can be targeted through the natural products. And like the topic I'm going to discuss is on the slacking the neovessel sprouts through the natural products. So before getting into the topic, like we just have, we'll know that's some of the very important thing, like to ask for the today's concern, that's the health. The health is not a, is a just a, no, where most of the people will think that it's a just a complete, like a physical well-being, but nowadays it has to be understood that like the, even the status of mental and social well-being is also matters. And as for the, we are in the midst of this COVID-19 trial, and we all know that like how exactly we are fighting, not only us, like all over the world. So we are fighting against this disease with like a lot of care and hygienic conditions and personalized practices. And we are understanding the importance of health and how exactly to feel that, like how exactly, so we have to be maintained with the status of health. And there are like the several determinants of the health, and we should not be able to understand, like we should not feel like only some mere aspects will play an important role. But nowadays, like it's a gender, health services, the employment and the working conditions, education and literacy, the physical environments, the financial and social status, and like that, so we have so many factors which determines our the current health. And so even like not only what we think is like just by being the like having some diseases, physical diseases or some mental diseases, we have some problem. But now today there's so many aspects are like simultaneously influencing our day to day health issues. So that's what like we are going to take care several self-care strategies, especially the personal hygienic practices, social structure of person's life, and psychological health. So for example, like personal hygienic practices in the midst of COVID-19, so we are like, which we are not doing before, like wearing the mask and washing our hands frequently, maintaining the social distances from one person to another, and also like maintaining the good practices have now we have started implementing, and also the keeping the surrounding environment. These are all comes under the personal hygienic practices, which directly determines what exactly our health is implies. And also the social structure of personal life. So we have to be interact with the social environment, and where we are going to get influenced. So that also directly responsible. And the psychological health, yesterday we have seen that like there's one of the Bollywood actor who had passed away just because by committing suicide, even though he's a big celebrity. So his mental health was very important, and where like he has lost his he went to depression, and finally he committed suicide. See like how exactly, so not only the physical health, not only the mental health, not only the social status and personal things, every aspects we are directly connected to health. And that is what like what we have to think is the health is the one of the most important thing which we are going to be, which we have to pursue in this world, in this earth. So what are the key important factors which influences is, for example, this the 20th century, that is the sleep, the stress, the diet, and exercises. Even though, so there comes under the 4 different categories, but they are the one which actually like interconnected to each other. For example, the stress. So everyone is having the stress. For example, in the like nowadays, like the students are having the stress. So they doesn't have the schools, and like the parents are under the stress, the children are under the stress, and they are also like there are many like online classes are being done, and many were unable to like cope up with that, and lot of stress is going on. And also because of this COVID-19, so many health issues, so many things are happening, that is what inducing the stress, and that automatically influencing the sleep also. For example, one best thing is like most of the people are suffering from the insomnia, that is a sleeplessness, just because having the mobiles. Okay, so because this WhatsApp era, like, or Facebook, like, which we have influenced the younger generation, has directly influenced the melatonin production, and that indirectly has causing the sleep disorder, and entire the chronological cycle, the biological cycle has been impaired. And another important factor is the diet as well as the exercises, which are very, very important in these aspects. The diet is the one, what we eat, it makes our health. The fruit, this healthy diet, which comprises the fruits and vegetables, are very important, and avoiding junk food is also the matters. And the physical exercises, like, as well as mental exercises, the practicing yoga, and also the doing some like meditations, dhyana, that's all these importance plays a very, very important in maintenance of this health. And ultimately, so everything copes with our immunity, so that immunity has to support and preventing all the diseases, both from like infectious diseases as well as the non-infectious diseases, and all the everything will directly, so will has to be supported by our immunity, so that like we can be strong enough to fight against these diseases. And despite of these, all these cases which we know, and all these factors which we know, so still, like, we have millions of people are dying everywhere, just because like 6 months back we were not knowing, so there is a disease called corona, there's a coronavirus, COVID-19 is going to invade all over the world, and we are almost like 4 to 5 lakhs people are already being died, and more than 25 lakhs people have been affected. And so we cannot assume, we can exactly think that how exactly these will influence us. But if you just, as per the WHO concern, so there are top 10 diseases of the world has been categorized. One is the cardiovascular diseases, that is just generally it is called heart attacks, and which accounts for 32.3% of the deaths. And the cancer is the second one, which claiming 16.3%, and rest comes the respiratory diseases and the diabetes. And the diabetes is actually the stepping stone for many diseases. Even the cancer and cardiovascular diseases are directly influenced by this thing. And as well as for the respiratory diseases is concerned, the coronavirus is also like indirectly is causing the respiratory symptoms, like abnormalities, and causing the respiratory diseases. Lower respiratory infections, like that is the pulmonary diseases, is responsible with like claiming the 4.4% of the death all over. And on the next comes under the dementia, neonatal deaths, diarrhea, and also road injuries, that is accidents, and liver diseases are comes under these things. So one of the key important thing which we have to notice here, how exactly, which we can concentrate more on the cancers, how exactly the cancer is will come, and what is the role of our immune system. So what is the default which is going to happen for the initiation of the cancer, and then how exactly it can be targeted, how exactly it can be therapeutically, so we can cope up, and by changing the lifestyle, the changing the food habitat, and also like how the exactly the therapeutic strategies, so we'll discuss one by one. And the cancer, like if you know, like most I don't have to tell, but most of the learned people are over here, and it's not only a single disease, it's a cancer is a group of more than 100 disease, you must be knowing. So there are like almost there are more than 78 organs of around 78 organs are present in our body, and almost all the organs, not all the organs, like almost all the organs are going to get affected by this cancer. And there are some organs which are exceptionally fine still, like for example, so bulbourethral gland, as well as the heart cancer, like nobody might have heard about heart cancer. But so heart tumors will be formed, but heart cancer is very, very rare. And so that there is a still enigma which lies in this. But on the other part, on the other hand, so which we know that, so almost every organ starting from eyes to legs, and all the internal organs present in our body will be get affected by this cancer. That's why like cancer. And another important thing is each cancer is having its own symptoms. So one we cannot compare one cancer with the another cancer, and each cancers are the different, have their different molecular biology, different pathological aspects, and everything is different. And so one important thing which we have to generally we have to discuss to know this, whether this cancer is caused by bad luck, or it is just a lifestyle or dietary modification or inheritance of the genes. So of course, so like there are some cancers which is purely bad luck. So there are some people who says that I don't have any bad habits. I don't smoke. I don't drink, or like I don't consume alcohol. I'll maintain very healthy lifestyle. But despite having that, they will have some type of cancer, especially the childrens who doesn't have any kind of bad habitats, and they will also get there's, some special types of cancer. So that's why those cancers are categorized as the cancer which is caused by bad luck. And some cancers which are intentionally, which we can develop, like for example lifestyle and the dietary modification, consumption of the more alcohol, and like smoking, that chewing tobacco, and all these will are the lifestyle diseases, the diet which is like 100% guarantee, like we can give for lung cancer, oral cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, or the influenced by this thing. So that's why like we can exactly, we cannot categorize as well as bad luck as well as the lifestyle, but we can differentiate between. So these are the cancers which are caused bad luck, and these are the cancer which is by purely lifestyle, at least to know that, so we can modify those lifestyle so that we can prevent those diseases. So we'll just have a brief discussion over the discussion, like for example brain tumor, which is mostly affect the younger generation also. Okay, so from the younger generation, most of the children will get the brain tumor. So we don't know exactly what exactly the causes, like it's nothing influenced by the lifestyle here over here, and we can call it that is a bad luck. And head and neck cancer is a cancer of it's a more than like 10 different cancers, starting from the brain cancer, eye cancer, nose cancer, like oral cancer. Oral cancer itself is having a different organs, upper upper tongue, lower tongue, buccal mucosa. So all these comprises the oral cancer, and this can be either by bad luck or also because of the consumption of the tobacco as well as the smoking, and other this even the viruses will also responsible for like oral cancer, like especially HPV, like which is going to cause the so oral cancer indirectly. And the thyroid cancer, like we can categorize both under the bad luck as well as the lifestyle diseases because of the smoking and radiations effects. And esophageal cancer, this is one of the upcoming cancer. This is actually, we can broadly, we can say that it's a lifestyle disease only. And because like what happens here is nowadays the gastritis problem is more, and because of this the gastritis, so the people are going to develop the gastroesophageal reflux disease. Ultimately they are going to get converted into esophageal cancer, and many people are dying because of the esophageal cancer, which can be pure completely by changing the lifestyle, by changing the stress, by changing the food habit, that we can control and we can manipulate, we can overcome with this esophageal cancer. And even the smoking is also responsible for that. And of course the lung cancer, which we can say that, so most of the people are lung cancer, but there are some exceptional cases, like they can say that I'm now non-smoker but still have got the lung cancer, but still like that can be categorized as a bad luck. But lung cancer is induced, and that is through the smoking, as well as not only the lung cancer, even the liver cancer, colon cancer, colorectal cancer, kidney cancer are already is directly connected with the smoking. And not only this, and even the diabetes and as well as the cardiovascular diseases are also associated with the smoking. And that's why like the stationary warning has given by the government of India, like so the smoking kills, and the young generation has to think about seriously whether they have to smoke or not. And another diseases which has bone cancer, which is purely a bad luck, we don't know exactly how exactly it comes. And liver cancer, again it's a diet, like consumption of a lot of meat consumption and fatty food will also influences this the liver cancer. And also the hepatitis is also responsible for that, but actually hepatitis is not directly going to cause, it's going to cause the liver cirrhosis, and ultimately it causes the liver cancer. And also influenced by the consumption of alcohol, which is going to cause alcoholic fatty liver diseases, as well as another disease called non-alcoholic fatty also disease, which is also influenced will influence the development of the liver cancer. And pancreatic cancer is one of the most rarest cancer, but still it's one of the cancer which is also called as a death by diagnosis. That is, it will diagnosed only at the later stages. So like our Union Minister Anant Kumar, our ex-defense minister and chief minister of Goa, Manohar Parrikar, all died because of this pancreatic cancer. Nobody knows, like they are the big celebrities and big people, and still they have suffered because their diagnosis itself is a very rare. And the skin cancer, like again, like we can call it as it's a kind of like race matters over here. So Caucasian race will have a lot of this skin cancer because of the low melanin pigment in their skin, and as well as the Afro-American race have less pigment, less conditions of melanoma. So that's why they don't have much, they are not much prone to this skin cancer. And ovarian cancer and testicular cancer is also like influenced through the lifestyle because of the hormonal imbalance, which is going to impact on the hormonal secretions, which influences the ovarian cancer as well as the testicular cancer in the case of men. So we don't have to be exactly there, but still, like I can say, what I can suggest you is by changing the lifestyle, by changing the diet, so we can still avoid some of the cancers. So by making a good practices in the health styles. And as for the WHO concern, the cancer mortality is different in the case of men as well as in the case of women. And in the case of men, the prostate, lung, colorectal, bladder, stomach, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia, and these are the cancer which is quite prevalent. And it's also like you should know that the men's are quite more the smokers than women's, and obviously the lung cancer, colorectal, bladder, and all these influenced by this the mortality rate is high in the case of men. And the prostate cancer is the cancer which is it is an organ which is prevalent in the case of men, and which is it's age-old diseases, and after the 60 years anybody can have this prostate cancer. But also the genetics and the race also matters over here. Afro-American race is having more they are more prone to this prostate cancer than any other thing. And as for the women is concerned, the like breast cancer, colorectal, and cervical cancer, ovarian cancers are much more prevalent than any other cancers. And one of the important thing is here, the breast cancer rates are very high in India. So like earlier it was not there. And also that too, we have to know that like breast cancer rates are high in the urban population than in the rural population. And the cancer of cervix, that is the cancer which is caused by human papilloma virus, that cervical cancer, is more prevalent in the rural population than in the urban population. The thing is maintaining the non-hygienic conditions of the reproductive organs, which makes the infectious infection to the cervical cervix, so that are caused by this human papillomavirus, is causing this disease, which can be completely prevented, like cured. So in Western countries, like where the proper hygienic condition will be maintained, so where that's what like education also matters over here. So education is very important. So in maintenance of this, so you won't see much of the cervical cancers in the America as well as European countries, only in the Southeast Asian countries as well as in Afro-American countries, so African countries. So you can see that the cervical cancers are high. That is because of the education, lack of literacy, as well as the not maintaining the hygienic conditions. And the breast cancer is also prevalent in the Caucasians race is very high. America, so like most of the people are very much prone to, women are very much prone to this breast cancer. That's why they do have this mammography screening every year after the age of 25 years. It's a mandatory. And but still it can be prevented at early stages by like self-examining or like undergoing mammography, like routine examinations. So which the disease can be so prevented as well as diagnosed at early stages, so that it can be cured. And so one of the important estimations, like what we have the global impact, like in recent years in the 2020s, what we have is, so there is a steep increase in the rise of new cancer cases from last 100 years to last 50 years. So there was like not much effective, but like before 100 years, there was no cancer at all. Like that means cancer is very less. Okay, the comparatively it was not at all compared to like that time, like a pandemic and endemic diseases were more prevalent. Now cancers was not much high. But from last 100 years, because of the changes in the lifestyles, the change in urbanization, globalization, industrialization, pollution, and all these things matters, and there's a steep increase in the cases of cancer, which we can see from last 20 years, which we can see. And if you just compare like which are the top cancers which are prevailing much increasing in the nowadays is the lung, liver, stomach, colorectal, breast, as well as esophageal. As I told you before, so these are the cancers so which are much lifestyle oriented. Lung, as I told, nicotine; liver, food and alcohol; the stomach, lung, nicotine; as well as the diet, colorectal, nicotine, as well as the diet, the breast, so like our lifestyle diseases again in the urban population which is increasing, and oral esophagus, again it's influenced by the smoking as well as the dietary style which is having an impact. So whatever the steep increase which we've seen from last 20 years, it is because of the changes in the lifestyles as well as the food habitat, which we have to know that. So as far as the global is concerned, so different parts of the world will have a different types of cancers prevalence. For example, as I told you before, Americans, the race itself, the Caucasians race, which is much more prevalent in the case of North America, are very much prone to breast cancer as well as the pancreatic cancer. And you can just see even in the Hawaii, the small island which belongs to North America, so it is a prevalent is thyroid cancer is in women is more prevalent. So look at here, the New Zealand, which is much more prevalent because of the bowel cancer is more, maybe probably because of the diet which they are going to have this. And Africa, see, all this liver, cervical, breast cancer are very much prevalent. And Kuwait, again, the breast cancer, and even India, the oral, cervical, gallbladder. See, this oral cancer, cervical cancer can be prevented, can be managed. So with like a lot of awareness about this disease, the cervical cancer is completely, we can avoid it by maintaining the hygienic conditions, which is very much prevalent in the African countries as well as like Southeast Asian countries. So which it is because of the lack of education. That's why I told you in the before itself, education also matters like in maintenance of the health. And as for the, if you just go to the concern like the of Indian statistics, so released recently by Indian administration, so they says that like around most of the increasing cases of cancer have been found with respect to breast, lung, and cervical cancers. Breast is in the case of urban population, and cervical in the case of women population. Lung, it is because of the younger generation. Again, with respect to, I just want to stress, because of the most of the students who are listening to this talk have to understand the impact of the nicotine on your health. So another increasing cases, rectum, colon, prostate, breast, uterus, ovarian, lung cancer also important. As well as here, so you can see here geographically, like even India is like we say the mini continent, subcontinent. So there are some regions like Aizwal, Barshin, Maharashtra, Mumbai, Chennai are very much, most of the people are dying because of this cancer. And there is one train which runs from Punjab to Bikaner in the Rajasthan. Bikaner is Rajasthan, which is having a cancer hospital, very famous cancer hospital. So instead, the train is itself is called Cancer Express. It's not called as a Bikaner Express. It is just because after the industrial revolution, green revolution, the fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, which has severely impacted on the health of the many people. And this train just runs from Punjab, Ludhiana to Bikaner, just to carrying the 80 to 90% of the cancer patients. So you can just imagine how the changes in this thing. So that's why like people are stressing more on organic farming, like use of like organic foods, which is very, very important in maintenance of the health. And what are the different causes? So that is one of the, like 33% of the cancer tobacco, and the 20% of the cancer is because of the obese or overweight. So that's one of the major, it is because of the consumption of people say that I don't have time to walk or jog. No, it's not that. It's a totally negligence, because like we can give us a time to maintain our normal health and to maintain the normal weight, so that like we can avoid, because that indirectly will cause us many of the cancers, including the liver cancers, where the accumulation of the fat inside the liver cells will make the immune liver dysfunction that causes liver cirrhosis, like that, like it will have a liver cancer indirectly. And there are some microorganisms, like a lot of microorganisms like human papillomavirus, which causes the cervical cancer. Other than virus is there, raw sarcoma virus is there, and Sivian virus 40 is there, and another like even AIDS, that HIV is indirectly is going to cause the cancer. That is not directly, because it destroys our immune system. It leads to there is a special type of cancer called Kaposi sarcoma, which is prevalent in the case of AIDS patients. And another important thing which we have to know is like the Helicobacter pylori. It's a bacteria. It's also responsible for the cause of this cancer. So this bacteria will live in the acidic environment, that is at the around a low pH, and if you continuously having this low pH status maintained, and this Helicobacter will survive. So that ultimately is going to cause the colon cancer and colorectal cancer, which we have to know. And other things is like physical activity, poor dietary habitats, as well as the even exposure to sunlight, which more like especially this concerns the global conditions where like Afro-American countries, European countries, which are where they are above the tropical regions, so where they are having like more UV penetrations will have, they are more prone to this melanoma than like Indians, which we are quite more much protected, which we are where we live in the tropical region. And so let's go in much deep about the molecular biology, how exactly the cancer arises. So basically the cancer arises because of the mutation. There is a series of mutations will develop, not only one mutations, there are two types of mutations. One is called passenger mutations and another one is the driver mutations. So passenger mutations are the mutations which will develop like several every day, like several mutations are going to develop, and that's going to DNA damage response is going to prevent that, and it's going to repair mechanism will be happening. But these are not much harmful, but there are after some time, so there will be like 5-6 driver mutations are going to get developed, which carry these passenger mutations along with that and makes the disease worse. And for example, you can see this is the normal epithelium, and this is the initial stage. It's called like a kind of like benign tumor. So which is a very few cells are going to get accumulated, and they are going to localize, and they are not much harmful, even though they are tumor, and they need not to be a cancerous. So they become cancerous once they become transformed into a stage called malignant. Once they become malignant, so they will acquire the invasive nature, and they will transfer itself into the blood vessels, and they will migrate to the distant organs and expand themselves and by forming the secondary tumor that is called as in the metastasis. So the benign, malignant, as well as the metastasis are the three different stages of the cancers. And as for the cancer hallmarks are concerned, there are so many mechanisms are involved, like for example, deregulating cellular energetics, tumor promoting inflammation, enabling replicative mortality, genome instability, active invasion and metastasis, evading growth suppressors, and much more important is like I can say that inducing angiogenesis, resistant to cell death, and avoiding immune destruction. And of course, all these works through the coordinated action, but I will stress more about how exactly these coordinate each other and what is this angiogenesis, apoptosis, as well as the immune cell destruction, and how exactly we can target these mechanisms and and to prevent and establish a therapeutic regime for the treatment of the cancer. So to understand more about this angiogenesis concern, first we should understand how exactly our we are going to develop. So that is like after the fusion of the two gametes, that zygote as well as sperm and ovary, the zygote is formed and it's going to develop into different stages. Like after then it's going to form the fetus, like embryo is going to develop. And you can see one of the important first organ which is going to develop is an heart. Okay, because heart has to pump the blood, and the blood is the one which carries the oxygen, nutrition, and energy to all the other growing organs. And how this blood reaches? So blood has to reach through the blood vessels. So one of the important organs which is going to develop at the initial stage along with the heart is the blood vessels. You can see how the embryo is filled with the blood. You can see another picture over here. So where the lot of blood vessels which is developed are carried through different organs, because all the growing organs need a blood supply. And because blood is the one which carries the oxygen, nutrition, and everything, and because it has to carry means it must supply through these blood vessels, and blood vessels are very, very important. So as for the blood vessel is concerned, so this is a normal blood vessels, and among these there are three types of blood vessels, that is the arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries are lesser in number, larger in size. Veins are much more lesser in number compared compared to arteries, but lesser in the dimension is less. And capillaries are more in number as well as they're smaller in size. Okay, and you can just have a look over here how much amount of blood vessels are present in our body. So you can see this, the head region. So these blood vessels composed both arteries, sorry, all three arteries, veins, as well as the capillaries. So altogether, if you just line up the blood vessels one to another, so we can find like more than 60,000 miles of blood vessels are present in one human body. And you can just have a look at over here in our hand itself, how much amount of blood vessels are present. Just you can see the concentrate over here of the finger. That's the reason we are going to feel the tremors. So which we can and whenever we get angry or when we get tension, like so the tremors we can see at the hand is just because of the rush of blood vessels to the small capillaries. So which we cannot cope up with that amount of pressure. So that's the reason. So how these blood vessels are distributed, and of course these blood vessels are tree of our life. And you can see the blood vessels are very important because it distributed through all over the body. And so the same this blood vessels are categorized like usually what happens is this is the normal blood vessel which is developed during the embryonic development, and because of the various stimulus, because of the various physiological conditions, so there are a lot of new blood vessels are going to form, and that concept is called as an angiogenesis. It's a routine normal process where they keep on the blood vessels will be developing for every day. So for example, you can see here, this is the normal vasculogenesis, and this is the blood vessels which is being developed. So during the different physiological conditions. So we should not be get confused with the vasculogenesis as well as the angiogenesis. Vasculogenesis is the blood vessels which is developed at the embryonic stages, and angiogenesis is the blood vessels which are developed routinely, so whenever it is required. So the growth of new blood vessels from the existing blood vessel is called angiogenesis. Angio means new, neogenesis, new blood vessel formation is going to happen. So what are all the different conditions during the child development? So to repair some of the mechanisms, so new blood vessels are going to develop, and in the monthly reproductive cycle, that is menstrual cycle, to uterine lining healing, so this angiogenesis is going to get developed. And so angiogenesis also being developed whenever there is a wound. So if your wound has to be get healed up, so automatically what happens, so this has the blood supply has to reach, and this blood supply is going to provide the oxygen into nutrition to the dividing cells, so the cells can establish, the heat can heal up the process. So how exactly the physiologically angiogenesis are important. You can also find the neurogenesis, that's a brain development. So this is angiogenesis are important. And this was the first time which was discovered by the Judah Folkman in the around 1970s, like how exactly this angiogenesis plays a very important role, particularly in many diseases. So what is a molecular mechanism? We just go biochemically, like how exactly this, what happens here. So when the blood vessel, then from the normal vasculature, if the new blood vessel has to sprout, so first what happened is it required a stimulus. So what it will do, our body will secrete like whatever secrete some growth factors, or which will bind to the receptors which is present on the endothelial cells. Endothelial cells are the cells which is made up of this blood vessel. And what happens is whenever this endothelial cells bind, so the intracellular signaling cascade is going to activate, which leads to the endothelial cell activation. So when this endothelial cell activation is going to happen, it leads to the proliferation of the endothelial cells will start dividing. And it's going to directional migration. It will start migrating to the where exactly the stimulus has come here. And it will also involve the remodeling of the extracellular matrix, which is the basement of the endothelial cell lining is going to get modeled. And you can see how when the stimulus which is released, which bound to here, you can see a small growth factor is binding to receptor, and how the blood vessels are sprouting. The new blood vessels are coming out from the existing blood vessel. It is getting branched out, and it's going to start migrating, and then it is going to migrate, then it's a tube formation, and finally the loop formation, finally vascular stabilization, the new blood vessels has been developed. So this is how the normal angiogenesis is going to take place in our body. So we have understood now, so what exactly the blood vessels playing a role. It's very important, but the same blood vessels sometimes it is going to turn bad. What happens when it's going to turn bad? See, so many diseases, the cancer, chronic wound disease, heart diseases, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, blindness, infertility, arthritis, hemangioma, so many diseases are going to get developed. The same blood vessels which is giving, which we considered as the tree of our life, when it turns bad, whether it's excessive or insufficient. If it's excessive, more blood vessels are growing, okay, than the normal. It may cause cancer, blinding disease. That's what it happens in the diabetes, glaucoma, sorry, psoriasis, arthritis, endometriosis, Kaposi sarcoma, that is in the AIDS condition, Alzheimer's, obesity, and in the case of insufficient, if less number of blood vessels are growing, heart diseases may develop, peripheral heart diseases, stroke, neuropathies, preeclampsia, hair loss, erectile dysfunctions are the consequences of this thing. So the blood vessels are very, very important, but excessive blood vessels growth, insufficient blood vessel growth are going to destroy the entire health system. So we'll concentrate how exactly these blood vessels play a very important role in the development of the tumor. So if these blood vessels are helping the tumor formation, the concept is called as tumor angiogenesis. So what is exactly this tumor angiogenesis? So as I told you before, there are three different stages of the cancer. One is called benign, another one is called malignant, another one is the metastasis. Benign is the localized tumor and which cannot be persist for a longer time. It can need not to be a cancerous one, and it can grow for any number of time, but it's even as long as it's non-cancerous, like it is fine. So sometimes it may go to 3 to 4 kgs. The doctor may say like it is nothing much, so you can operate in it, or else like if it is much more growing, like we can consider it. So sometimes the same benign tumor will immediately get transformed into a malignant, and once this malignant, this is a cancerous tissue, and then it is going to transfer through this blood vessel to form a secondary tumor that is called through the process of metastasis. So whatever the tumor which is going to develop because of the mutations will be very, very small. So whenever the cell cycle deregulation is going to happen, whenever there is a mutation in the tumor suppressor gene and the deviations in the cell cycle checkpoints, so the the cells will start dividing. So the growing cells will start accumulating and form a very small part of a tissue, which is like 1 to 2 millimeter in diameter. But that tumor, see, can you see here? This is a small tumor, and this is it needs a food. How the food has to reach to the cancerous tissue? It has to get through the blood vessels itself. So what it does is, so it will look after into the nearest blood vessel which has passed through it. It will some shed growth factors. So that growth factors, see, now has bound through the angiogenesis process. It start pulling out the new blood vessels, and the now new blood vessels are started supplying the food and oxygen. So you can see the pictorial representation how the smallest tumor, after secreting the growth factors, which has bound to the endothelial cells present on the nearest blood vessels, and then activated the angiogenesis process, and the new blood vessels has been formed, and now this new blood vessels has started establishing the tumor formation. You can see here how the tumor has engulfed with the so much amount of blood vessels, and the tumor start developing. And we can see this another pictorial representation how the angiogenesis is supportive for the establishment of the tumor. This is one of the initial stages of the cancer. Of course, the mutation is going to cause, but once the mutation is going to cause, the tumor has to establish. The tumor, if has to establish, the blood vessels has to cope up, and these blood vessels are going to support like this. And the same blood vessel which is supportive and using the same blood vessel, it act as a transporter, and where it's going to transport the cancerous cells to the different organs. For example, the breast cancer people will immediately, after some time, they will develop into bone cancer. So the breast cancer cells have been passed through the blood vessel to the bone tissue, and they establish there, and the secondary tumors have been formed, that is called bone cancer. See, so we'll just go in much more deeper. These are the factors that are like vascular endothelial growth factor, FGF, TGF, PDGF, HGF. These are the so many factors which is responsible. These are the stimulus secreted by the tumor cells and which will bind and activate. So of course, our body has a mechanism to deactivate this through the anti-angiogenic factors. But what happens here is, so the imbalance is going to happen. So whenever the tumor cell are very high, automatically the anti-angiogenic factor like thrombosplenotide, endostatin, everything is going to get reduced, and all these growth factor secretions is going to very high, that you can see over here. The imbalance is going to get altered. And so we'll get much more detail, the biochemistry of this one. Like this once this VGF is going to bind to the receptor. This receptor is called vascular endothelial growth factor receptor, also called as FLT1 or KDR. And this is going to activate this is a kinases and tyrosine kinase, which is going to activate the intracellular signaling pathway, which will bind to activate several transcription factor called HIF1 alpha. So that leads to the formation of a, like, which go and bind to the VEGF promoter and activate more VEGF production. That leads to the formation of the angiogenesis. And you can see here, not only one VEGF is responsible for this. So FGF, TGF, PLGF, PDEGF, pleiotropin, all these contributes. The more number of growth factors are secreted, the increase in the size of the tumor. And this is how the blood vessels are going to support and the establishment of the tumor in the body. So this is an overview like what I have discussed so far. That's a small vascular tumor has become big tumor just because of the secretion of this thing. And this is another picture, like how the early cancer and later stage of the cancer. The cancer is like the blood vessels have started moving towards the cancers, and that's engulfed, and then it has formed, established. And this is an example like how the colorectal cancer has been developed. See, it's a small one, and slowly it has established and it has developed a colorectal cancer over here. And this is in the laboratory, we can prove that like how angiogenesis is responsible. It's a 0.5 millimeter like the gel, like matrix gel, so which has implanted into the mice. Like after 1 millimeter, the blood vessels like to the blood supply, it's being growing, then it has completely grown with a 10 millimeter. If you dissect and check for histopathologically, you can see the lot of blood vessels inside this. And another important concept is the programmed cell death. It's also called as an apoptosis. So as I told, the inducing angiogenesis is one of the important concept for in the case of like blood vessel formation. Another one is resistant to apoptosis. Apoptosis is a normal phenomenon. The cells will die. So whenever there is a deregulation in the cell cycle and alteration in the DNA like S phase or a G phase, G2 phase or M phase, so immediately the cells will tell the tumor suppressor genes to undergo apoptosis. The cells will immediately they will die. It's a normal physiological process. But what the cancerous will do, the cancerous cells are abnormally produced. They violated the regulation cell cycle process. Obviously, they have to die. But what they would do, the cancer cells are so smart. Immediately, they will mutate all the genes which is responsible for the induction of apoptosis, including like P53, P21. All these genes are going to get mutated. Once they get mutated, the cells are going to get resistant to apoptosis. The cell has to survive first. So that is how the cancerous cells. So the resistant to apoptosis is the mechanism. And so whenever what happens in the case of apoptosis is they'll normally the membrane asymmetry is going to change, caspases are going to activate, which leads to the nuclear condensation, DNA fragmentation, and the building of the membrane. But in the case of cancerous cells, what happens because of the mutations, you can see here, so slowly the cancerous cells evade the apoptosis, will initiate the limitless replicative potential and self-growth, sufficiency growth signals and intensity of anti-growth signal that leads to sustained agents. So it's a coordinated action. The cell has to survive and also angiogenesis has to induce. So ultimately, so that is how the cancer cells are going to develop. So biochemical, if you just check, so there are various signaling network which plays a very important role because of the oxidative stress or any other mutation like B53, the DNA damage response. So that is going to induce this process, and this is activated by either by extrinsic pathway as well as the intrinsic pathway. So which is going to play a very important role in the activation of the this thing. And so the simultaneously, so what is immunology says, like whenever there's an abnormality, immediately it will be recognized and then it is going to target the cancerous cells, like irrespective, especially the TC cells, which is T regulatory cells, and the cytotoxic T lymphocytes, which is activated through the cytokines by the TH cells, will activate. But what happens is the concept of cancer immunosurveillance proposes that immune system eliminates the nature of nascent tumors before they can become clinically apparent. So based on our understanding, that is tumors that do not clinically apparent must have done so by evading immune detector killing. So immune system destruction is going to happen. So our immune system is going to fail. So whenever there's an apoptosis resistant, which has to kill the cells, and and also the sustained angiogenesis. So simultaneously, so the immune function, which the TC cells, natural killer cells, T regulatory cells, antigen presenting cells, which has to play a very important role. So they are going to get suppressed. So that leads to the case condition called cancer immunosurveillance. And see here, see, these are the various signaling network which is contribute to this fibroblast, the innate immunity cells which are deactivated, blood vessel formation, and resistant to apoptosis, all these things, and it's a totally complicated network. And what, when we are in the confusion, so what, how exactly we can target? So actually, so there is a concept called targeted therapy. What happens in the normally is, so most of the time when we do the chemotherapy or radiotherapy, so we'll have the lot of side effects. You might be seeing the cancer patients will lose the hairs. So when they cancer patients has to lose the hairs, why the rashes has to develop all over the body. So it's a like a more most of the time what happens, side effects are more complicated than the treatment. So it is just because the drugs which is prevalent, most of the drugs which is prevalent, which is very effective for the cancer, what they say is, so they are unable to differentiate between the fastest dividing cells of our body. So why the hair cells are where hair we are going to lose is because the cancers are unable to differentiate the fastest dividing cancerous cells as well as the epithelial cells which is present in the hair follicles. So that is the reasons. So we have to develop a target theory. We should target a particular target. Okay, so instead of broadly throwing a stone to hit the mango to down, like we have to go for a like highly the targeted one, and that concept we can call it as an anti-angiogenesis by targeting the blood vessels by starving a tumor. So we can cut down the tumor form blood vessel formation where the food supply is going to get cut, and also reversing the apoptosis which is resistant. So through the radiation or chemotherapy, so like particularly targeting, so we can activate our the cell death mechanism which killing the cancerous cells, particularly not killing the normal cells. So these are the some of the important strategy which is has to be the thought. And this can be effectively done through the immunomodulation. What is immunomodulation? So instead of directly killing the cells, we should activate our immune system, and that immune system has to take care of all the cells. So if you kill the cancerous cells directly, so what our immune system will do? There are so many cells like antigen presenting cells, macrophages, T C cells, cytotoxic T cell, lymphocytes, T regulatory cells, which take care of our like cancerous cells. But if you directly kill the cancerous cells, obviously they will be get lazy and they cannot act. So our drug system, our like therapeutic system should activate the immunomodulation. So that is, it should modulate the immune system so that it can take. So these natural immunomodulators through the diet or through the natural products, what we can do is we can stimulate the immune system so that it can induce the cell mediated as well as humoral immune response against the tumor formation, as well as it also acts as an immune suppressant. It can bring about antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-proliferative, anti-angiogenesis, and anti-metastatic condition. So this is the this is the combination and the new therapeutic strategy which has to be employed, where the new through the modulation of the immune systems, we have to act not directly killing the cancerous cells. So where and all we can target. For example, as I told, this is the blood vessel formation process starting at the stimulus level, it's at the receptor level, at the tube formation level, at the like extracellular matrix, that is the degrading enzymes called like MMPs level, and all these targets like we can block the angiogenesis. And ultimately, so if you cut down the angiogenesis, what happens? So this is going to happen. See how the tumor which is established, how it has been regressed. And so this is one of the study like monoclonal antibodies, like again, so with this kind of like endogenously the antibodies will take care of the tumor. Like we can also give the treatment, there's various antibodies are available. It is anti-VEGF antibody, that's also called like a bevacizumab, and commercially it is called Avastin, like which is going to target the VEGF, and thereby it's cut down the supply of blood vessel to the tumor. Can you see how exactly the blood vessels are being cut by targeting this antibody mediated targeting VEGF? and see that slowly the regression of the tumor is going to happen. This is kind of like the effective way. So to do with these understandings, we have a small laboratory situated at the Sahyadri Science College, Kuvempu University. So where we have identified several natural molecules and as well as the synthetic molecules, which are having the immunomodulatory as well as like anti-angiogenic property. And so we work like we have, that's a tritopin, we identified lupiol, which is a tritopinoid, and which is most of the dietary fruits, like even like in this is a season where the mango we eat, which will contain this lupiol. And the scrutilarin is a phenolic compound, which is most of the fruits will have this. And Dolichos lab and dietary this bottle guard, Lagniaceae is a latex site. And these are the two things where we have identified the lectins, and these lectins also plays a very important role in the immunomodulation. So this work we have done with our collaborator, Dr. Pramod SN from Davangere University itself. And this is a solanidin, is a new compound which is again which is present in Solanum nigrum, which is also in steroidal alkaloid, which is going to effective in inducing apoptosis. And where so if you concentrate more on how exactly the lectins are going to play important role. So the lectins, so what are lectins? Lectins are the carbohydrate binding proteins. So they are the proteins which is bind to the carbohydrate moiety, and they are so what we tried to identify is we isolated the first time, like we isolated from the bottle gourd. So bottle gourd is a very well known plant, and it has been known from several years. And it is a first domesticated plant which is next to the dog, which is associated with the man. And so the man was using this plant from very long time. And but only the thing is, nobody knows like its important medical property. So we try to identify the lectins from this latex, that is from the this bottle gourd, and we have isolated this lectin, and these lectins have the capacity to agglutinate the blood cells, and which we can show. We characterized these lectins completely, and we purified these lectins, and then once we purified, we started we checked the proliferation efficiency, and when we treated with these to the peripheral blood lymphocytes, they started proliferating. So that was an important breakthrough. What we found is, so it's activating our immune system, and obviously the cytokine levels are very high. And when we took this conditioned medium and then started treating with the cells, like it's killing the cancer cells as we through the clonogenic system, and also it also regresses the tumor formation, both in the ascites tumor formation as well as the solid tumor. You can see here there is the regressed tumor after treating with this lectin. So the mechanism is, it is activating our immune system, that is through the lymphocytes. When we checked out the lymphocyte proliferation rate, in these cases it's very high. And so obviously the interleukin 2 levels are very high. That interleukin 2, which is an anti-cancer, have properties, so that is activating the TC cells to kill the cytotoxic T lymphocytes, and thereby it is killing the cancer cells. So the mechanism is through the immunomodulation. And that is another important thing which we also studied with the xenograph studies, where we cultured the human lung cancer cells in the mouse cam, chicken cam, and where we found the regression of the tumor. And these are the histopathological studies where we can see here how exactly the blood vessels which is formed, which is regrade after treating this lectin, which is isolated from this bottle gourd. And these are the differential gene like NF-kappa B, I-kappa B, HF1 alpha, VGF, MMP2, MMP9, actin. All these genes are responsible for the angiogenesis process, where have been altered like after treating with this lectin. So this is another study where we have found that through the rat corneal assay and the ex vivo cam, in vivo cam, as well as the rat corneal angiogenesis, rat aortic ring assay, where we can see the inhibition of the blood vessels. So how exactly this lectins are acting as an anti-angiogenic molecule. And this is finally what we conclude is here is this bottle gourd has an effective lectin, which is having an immunomodulatory property, which will activate a P53, thereby the intracellular signaling cascade to induce apoptosis in the cancerous cells, and also block the transcription factor called HF1 alpha, which can target, which is responsible for angiogenesis, will be get inhibited. And this is purely because of the increased amount of lymphocyte production after treating the cells, after treating with this lectin to the tumor cells, and their interleukins are going to secreted in high amount, and thereby particularly interleukin 2, and this is going to bring about the action. So mechanism of action is through the immunomodulation. And some other things which we concentrated on Dolichos lab lectin, and the same thing, like we purified this lectin from this thing, and we characterize that lectin, and we also, it has also shown the immunomodulatory activity. And so we also determine how exactly which glycan specificity it has been found, and then it is bound, then it is characterized the protein, and we checked like the proliferation effect. So it has increased the murine splenocytes as well as the thymocytes number has been increased, simultaneously results in the increased interleukin production, especially the anti-inflammatory interleukins have been anti-cancer inflammatory, like interleukin 2 has been production is levels are very high. And so it has a very profound effect on the blood vessel formation, like as we found through the various assays like XYOCAM and rat iotic ring assay as well as UXR migration assay. So we have been found, and it has inhibited the complete ascites tumor formation as well as the solid tumor formation. And then it also at the molecular level, so we have characterized the CD31, which is endothelial cells marker, has been completely vanished after treating with the lectin, which is isolated from this Dolichos lab. And these are the supportive assays, like this is a special assay, as I told in the beginning, it's a matricial plug assay. So how the blood vessels has been completely inhibited after treatment with these lectins. And these are the genes again responsible differential gene expression has been observed finally. So this we can say that, so this Dolichos lab is activating the glucose mannose receptor interaction that leads to the immunostimulation and like a lot of immune cells for production of interleukin 2, and that is activating the various transcription factors modulation, especially NF-kappa B, HF1 alpha, and the VEGF, thereby is regressing the tumor cells. So this concept is very important because, like as I told you, instead of like hitting a stone to get a mango, like in a broader way, so what we can directly think is we can directly target the immune system, we'll activate our immune system so that it can take care of its own mechanism. So that is the most important. So this has catched a very important attention across various newspapers. This is the team of work. We can see the Dr. Pramod, who is associated with this work. I'm really thankful for him for his cooperation as well as coordination. And this we are published in the reputed journals like Clinical and Experimental Immunology as well as Immunopharmacology. And like ultimately what I just want to say here is we have to reduce the fat, animal fat, and quit the smoking as well as a lot of fruits and vegetables, and avoid excessive sunlight, and also like avoid obesity, and the rigorous and vigorous exercises to maintain the immune system activate is very important. And I just want to share like some of enigmas about the cancer is, so organ specificity, as I mentioned, who are like not all tumors, all organs is going to get affected. So the only things, the bulbourethral gland and heart and the seminal vesicles are not going to have been reported with the cancer. The thing is why we don't know. So the things have been investigated, and even though the prostate gland as well as the seminal vesicles are very close to each other, prostate gland is highly susceptible for the cancer, where seminal vesicles are highly resistant. So maybe because of the composition of the genes or the cell structure or the tissue present over here, it might matters, and still the enigmas has to be answered. The most important thing here is like the another the man is, other than man, the another animal which is going to have most number of cancer cases is the dog. So you, even though the close associate like chimpanzees, we never have seen that it has cancer, like comparatively it is very less percent, like 1% to 2%. Horse, cows, they're very less percent of the cancer. But why the cancer prevalence is almost equivalent to the dog is because, so as I told, the dog is the animal which is closely associated with a man from last 1,000 years, and dog doesn't have its own food habitat. It started eating whatever the man eat. So the culprit is the food. So we can directly link that what we eat is what makes our healthy. So why there is 100 years, there is an increase in the food habit, cancer's condition is very high. Why from last 50 years, we are eating more number of junk foods. So pizza, burger, and all these junk foods which we are eating will have a lot of like chemicals which is get converted as a carcinogens and to induce the cancer. So that is the thing which we can notice that. So that's a dog and humans are the more prone to cancers because they share the same food. That is one of the important thing. And also the geographically, so we can say that, so they are like there are different Indians are quite more resistant to many of the cancers they are compared to others. For example, Indians never get skin cancer as we seen in the case of Caucasian race like American race, which they are very much prone. And of course the Caucasian race will have breast cancer rates are very high than to here, but still like the number of cases in India is been rising because especially urban style, because of their dressing things, and also late marriages and not having the child, and avoiding breastfeeding is also very important. So here, so the geography is also made. Afro Americans, that is a black race, Negro race, has been considered, has been and more number of prostate case has been identified than any other cases. So these are some of the things which has to be thoroughly has to be investigated. So ultimately, so I would like to say this health is the diet which matters to boost our immune system. And with this, I'll conclude my session, and I would like to thank the funding agencies like UGC, DST, DBT, SERV, as well as ICMR. And also I would like to thank all my research students, and also my collaborator Pramod Esan, who is currently working in Department of Food Technology, Biochemistry Department of Davangere University, along with my students Prabhu, Vignesh, Vijay, Vikas, Ankit, and Bhanumati, who has contributed for the ongoing research in our laboratory. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Over to Pramod.
Yeah. Hello, Dr. Prabhakar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your extensive talk on the cancer diet and immunomodulations and therapeutic approaches, the many lifestyles and the diet habits which usually induces the different varieties of cancer. It was very extensive. And then the audience has placed some of the questions that I'm going to ask on behalf of them. So we'll have a transactions, and these are the questions that has been live raised in the Zoom platform, as well as in YouTube, and as well as Facebook comments. So I'm going to read out the questions, and probably I will be expecting an answers from you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is, how there are like a lot of people, like about 6 or 7 asked a similar question. So we framed it to make it common. So how dietary and lifestyles has adverse or advantage in tumor management?
Yeah, that's what I told you. Like I gave the examples of the man versus the dog, and which is the way the food is important. And if you just go back and check the history of the cancer, like 1,000 years back, there was no much cancer has been reported. Like most of the history says like pandemic and like plague, malaria and all. The cancer outbreak and many people died. There was no history. And like whatever the history, what we can see is only like last 100 years, 50 years, and there's a steep increase here. So we have, if you can also see that the diet is the one which is majorly the changing from the original food habitat to this thing. So where the traditional food habitat has been lost, and where a lot of chemicals and fertilizers has been being used, and that the same thing what we are consuming, that is influencing that. And these diets, whatever the diet which we are, if you are rich in the diet, will have the rich source of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory molecule. For example, our regular diet with that's a curcumin, so the turmeric, which is having the active component curcumin, which is very well known anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, and which is traditionally being used. We don't have to take the curcumin directly. So what we have to do is we have to consume the turmeric. So that's what even in the corona COVID-19 cases, what the Ayush Department of Government of India is saying that, so you have to include the proper nutritional and rich antioxidant, anti-inflammatory molecule diet. So that's what I suggest to do. Instead of taking the medicine, like prevention is better than cure. So we have to use the regular vegetables. As I told, I gave the examples of Dolichos lab, as well as the hyacinth bean, and both of which we are consuming as a diet, which will have the lectins. So that lectins will boost our immune system. automatically it will take care of it. So the diet is the one which is very, very important plays role here. So instead of eating the junk food, so the food which most of the food component, you will have most of the very important dietary supplements, which are like phenolics, steroidal alcohols, flavonoids, and all these things will modulate our immune system, will activate our immune system, will boost our immune system, will take care of automatically. So this is a very important, that diet is playing a very, very important role over here.
Okay. So the other question is, we have a debate on allopathic and Ayurvedic treatments against the cancer. Will
Yeah.
the Ayurvedic medicines are really helpful? One. Then the second question is, so after the cancer treatment, what are the chances of cancer reoccurrence once
Yeah.
it is being fully treated?
Yeah.
So can we be able to fully treat the cancer? Because there are some cases that they say are completely recovered, and there is another cases where the cancer recurrence has been found after a few years. So
Yeah.
what are your opinions?
Yeah, with respect to the first questions, Ayurvedic versus allopathy, like of course, like Ayurveda has, it's very important. Like what Ayurveda says, like include the food components in this thing. So whatever, ultimately, if the food component is having everything, all the ingredients, it will automatically it influences. But only problem is with Ayurveda, so which is existing in India, like from the very, very ancient times, which we don't have a proper record. Until unless the people from America have told that curcumin you can use from the turmeric, and they have patented, and we made it, it's a very important. So we don't have any idea. Then we started claiming, no, we are using this turmeric from very old ancient this thing. So this is turmeric is the best example, where which we use for whenever there is a wound, we are going to heal, drink it. Whenever there is an infection, we are going to do this. The same thing, it matters. Okay, so but only the thing is, the Ayurveda still has lot of importance, but it has to be studied extensively. So the mechanism has to be established. So which we are lacking. And the most of this allopathy, what they say, they'll identify a particular drug which target a particular target, and it's going to activate. But it's directly relevant to the second question, so the surveillance. So what we have to do is, so initial identification of the cancers are very important. Two, if it is get identified at the earlier stage, so automatically, so we can start it taking it the treatment from the early stage, from the stage 1, stage 2, it's fine. But stage 3, stage 4, obviously the survival rate decreases and chances of mortality is very high. And the only thing is, so we have to understand what is the changes in the physiological, what is happening. Especially, for example, breast cancer, the self-examination is very, very important. And and also cervical examination, like where the pap smear, simple test can be routinely done once in a year, the people can go and do it. So what I suggest to you is, instead of going for a treatment for like after identification at the 3rd stage or 4th stage, so if it is diagnosed, it can be treated very promptly, and it can be have a very good effect. And the people has to come out of the feeling that, so once the cancer means the person will die. No, it's not like that. Okay, only there are few cases, like for example, the Irfan Khan, who died because of the like very serious cases of glioma, as well as the pancreas. But there are some cases which can be detected. Depends on, it varies from one cancer conditions to other cancer conditions. Some cancers can be 100% it can be curable, but only the limitations at this moment. So identification means the diagnosis at what stage it is. The later the stages, the mortality rate will be very high.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And the other, like we had about 3 or 4 questions, we mixed and framed it to a single questions. And he said, why we have a lot of mixed opinion on tumor development and even with therapies? Why we are failed to design tumor specific designated therapies?
Sorry.
Why we are failed to design tumor specific designated therapies? Why we have to go with a
Yeah.
combination of three?
Yeah, that's what, like for example, like if you say here, if you just think that, as I told you in the beginning itself, each cancers are different. For example, in the breast cancer, BRCA1 is the responsible, and liver cancers, like in the case of prostate cancer, PSA antigens are responsible. And of course, the target will be different. We cannot have a uniform drug. So since the targets are different, obviously we have to establish this thing. So the mechanism is entirely different, and the target has to be differentiated. So we cannot say that exactly. That's what whatever the drugs what we having is the broad specific drug. Like for example, paclitaxel or cisplatin, whatever we have, they are broad specific drugs which can target the whatever the fastest dividing cells which is there in our body. So irrespective of the cancer. But what I am stressing out is we can go for a targeted therapy. So that targeted therapy, so definitely it's going to have an establishment. Of course, we have a limitations, and the monoclonal antibodies are really a new hope which is coming out now. And these monoclonal antibodies, especially for example, Avastin and Herceptin, which is treatment for the breast cancer, are highly effective, and it's a particularly targeted breast cancer, and this cannot go for any other response. So since the mechanism of each cancer and the cause of each cancer is different, and we have to go for a tumor specific target development.
I think I will end up. There is a last question, which is very much syncs to the present pandemic of COVID-19. Some people that ask, like, there are virus-caused cancers.
Yeah.
Is the COVID-19 induces tumorigenesis in infected cells, either any kind of like ACE, highly expressed ACE cells?
Not exactly at this moment, and it's too early to say anything. But whatever we see is, whatever we have observed the cases is the person who is having very low immune system, like low immune dysfunction system, are highly susceptible for this disease. Even the more number of cancer patients who are affected with this COVID-19 are being died. So it could be because of the immune system, but actually this COVID-19 is basically it's a virus which infects its lung system, and it's going to cause the respiratory system. And there is no history or no proven record to say anything. But to, even though like the entire, like the similar viruses which has been, for example, the SARS, the replica of this, has no role in the induction of the cancer. But only thing is, if the person obviously in the cancer system means the immune surveillance is very low, so that is the immune system is very dysfunction. So obviously at that time this is going to take on over, and it's going to cause the death. And it's not because the COVID is responsible for cancer or induction of the tumor. It's nothing to do with that as of now for the records.
Thank you so much for your extensive answer. Just a minute before a last question has been popped up, so I just want to ask and end these sessions with that. Is it possible to treat stroke by angiogenesis?
It's possible to
treat stroke.
Yeah, because like insufficient angiogenesis is responsible for that. At that time, what they will do is the treatment will be like boost the immune system. Sorry, angiogenesis process. Okay. So what happens in the case of like there is a blockade and there is a blood vessel limitations, supply is going to happen in the case of like stroke, which causes the death in the cells. And what we have to do is we have to induce, and there is a possibility. So which are like same thing with respect to how the cardiovascular diseases can be treated with the VEGF as well as FGF. There is the growth factor which is responsible for that. The same thing that a stroke also can be treated, but it is very early that investigation has been done to in this respect.
Thank you so much.
Like insufficient angiogenesis is going to cause the stroke, and where we have to not to cut down the blood cell supply, we have to activate the blood vessel formation. Yeah.
Dr. Prabhkar, thank you so much for your time and valuable information that you have delivered in your talk today in the first session. And on behalf of Biochemistry Department, Davangere University, and on behalf of Society of Biological Chemists, Davangere branch, we cordially thank you. Thank you so much for your involvement. And then with this, we end this session, and we'll wait for another 2 minutes to start the next session. So thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you.
Hello, Sids, are you? Hello, Siddaraju, Dr. Siddaraju.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. Siddaraju, yeah, the voice is clear, so it's unmute. Okay. Can you just share your slide, please?
Okay. Is it visible?
No.
Is it visible? I have just shared.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah, can I request Dr. Prabhkar, sir, please, can you just unshare your slides? Dr. Prabhkar, sir. Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, I can see. Okay, yeah, you can go. You can go for sharing now. It's not shared. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Yes, yes, yes. Now I got it. You can make it. Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll just wait for another 1 minute to start the sessions. We are going to give an introduction and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Siddaraju, sir.
Sure, Dr. Pramod.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second session of the third day national webinar on immunity and infection, biochemical approaches to therapies. I'm very much happy to introduce the second speaker of the day, Dr. Siddaraju MN, who has completed his MSc, PhD, and had a postdoctoral experience. He had finished his MSc in botany from Mysore University in 2001, and then he finished his PhD in biotechnology from CSIR CFTRI under the guidance of Dr. Shailaja in cancer biology. And then he moved to postdoctoral research to the University of Baltimore, and where he worked for about University of Maryland, Baltimore, US, where he worked on autoimmunity and Chinese medicinal plants and their influence on inflammatory processes and bone damage in arthritis. So he also got an Pearson education. So he had worked as a consultant to Edurite, the Person Education Limited, Bangalore, and he had worked at Food and Nutraceutical Wing at Development of Food Products as a research fellow in NAF research fellow at Junior Scientist in Ahmedabad. So where he had he had suggested to manufacture many things. In CFTRI, during his PhD, he worked on anti-ulcer bioactive compounds from ginger official lay. So he had more than 30 publications in a very high reputed journals, and to his credit, he has 1 US patent and 1 national patent, and then he has more than 10 H-index with citation more than 700, and then he had given a lot of invited talks, and to mention a few, he had worked in the variety of areas from plants to natural products to cancer biology and then autoimmune disorders, particularly concentrating on arthritis. I'm so happy to welcome Dr. Siddaraju. He's going to speak today on understanding autoimmune arthritis and osteoimmune crosstalk. Siddaraju, sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod, for your wonderful introduction.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm audible?
Yes, you're audible. It's very clear. You can go on.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So during this lockdown period, we all been locked in our houses or at our homes, and there is very less movement. So we may be sticking on to our home and surroundings. So there is rarely any sports or play or any movement outside. So it's like we are devoid of all the possible things that enhances the bone remodeling process. So you may feel, or we may feel, early in the morning the joints are stiffened or tightened, and some people may feel a pain in the fingers or in the foot, and there are many other occasions. So what are these pains or these symptoms? Are these symptoms related to arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, or gout, or plantar fasciitis. So with this introduction, let's go to my presentation, understanding autoimmune arthritis and osteoimmune crosstalk. So arthritis. So it's a word with two epithet, that is orthon means joints and itis means inflammation. Inflammation of the joints leading to the bone and cartilage damage is called as arthritis. So of course there are over 100 several types of arthritis are there in the world. It may be gout, as I already mentioned, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, different juvenile arthritis. In that, the main there are two types of osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Osteoarthritis usually it occurs in older population, maybe around the age between 60, 70 and above, and sometimes it may start at 40 also. So in total arthritis, 70% of arthritis is related to osteoarthritis, that is restricted to bones, joints. And rheumatoid arthritis, this is very dangerous because at least osteoarthritis it can wait for some certain age, but rheumatoid arthritis it can occur at any stage and at any age, and there is no any like you won't knowing that there is no information that you may get rheumatoid arthritis or not. So so what is rheumatism? So rheumatism it means a pain. It's a symmetric pain in multiple joints. So what is symmetric pain means? A person who is having rheumatic arthritis is different from other types of arthritis by having asymmetry in pain. Like if a pain occurs at the left hand, the similar pain will be occurring at the right hand. It's a symmetry. If it is wrist and the right wrist and left wrist, both wrists will be pain, or you will get the symptoms in both the hands at the same time. And this pain usually starts in fingers at the beginning and then moves on to the next parts of the joints. So on the pain, it can range from mild to moderate and also a severe pain. The pain you may feel like a pain like a sprain or a pain due to broken bone. So these are different conditions or symptoms of rheumatism. So osteoarthritis, just as you osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis. As I mentioned, 70% of the population in arthritis will somewhere they will feel osteoarthritic conditions. So what is this osteoarthritis means? Regularly there will be a lot of wear and tear of in the normal healthy bones. But if the cartilage and the wear and tear is more, usually which occurs at the later ages, and also if you are heavily working out and more than what the bone formation can bear, so that time the protective cartilage will get damaged and it will be degenerated. That time it appears that osteoarthritis appears. And again, the osteoarthritis can occur at any joint, but most importantly, it occurs to the hands, knees, hips, and spines. So this is a overview of a normal bone, a joint. So you see a joint, a space between the two bones, a small space, and this space will be filled by synovial fluid, a lubricant which helps in movement of the joints. And two bones at the interior side, it is lined with a soft tissue. So this soft tissue is called as cartilage or articular cartilage that present in the joint sections. And a soft lining at the side, so that is called a synovial membrane, which produces synovial fluid and helps in the lubrication of the joints. And of course, two bones will be joined together by a ligament and muscles. So this is a general overview of a normal healthy bone or healthy joint. So whereas in the case of osteoarthritis, you can see in this picture, so this is a normal bone having a heavy cartilage, a joint space, and of course it is not visible, but there will be a synovial fluid. And in this osteoarthritic case, there is a degeneracy of cartilage and also spur, means also there is a damage to the bone. So this degeneracy of bone or the cartilage, it may occur through the regular wear and tear, and it will lead to a most excruciating
Hello? Sis, can you hear me? Hello, Siddaraju sir, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Siddaraju sir, can you hear me? Oh, dear participants, sorry for the inconvenience. This is the first time we are facing some inconvenience. We are going to be fixed in 2 minutes. There is some kind of network problem from the speaker side. So we are going to fix in just 2 minutes. So please give us and have a patience for 2 minutes. Okay, we'll just get back in just 1 minute because there was some network issue at the speaker side. There was internet switch on because of the power lag. So we are going to get back in just a minute. He's going to re-log in again. Hello, BC. Okay, so I think he's going to re-log in again. Just have a patience for 1 minute because the power went off in his Wi-Fi connection. So it has been cut with the internet. So now he is re-establishing the connection with another source. Yeah, he's sharing now.
So I'm back.
Yeah. Hello, Siddaraju sir, are you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, you can just go on. You can make it full slide.
Yeah, just a second.
And now it's clear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very clear. The voice is
Yeah,
clear.
fine.
Everything is clear. You can go on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. Yes, here.
Hello?
Hello? Inside
Hello? Hello, Siddaraju sir, can you hear me? Yeah, there is some break in the voice. Is it some problem with the network issues, I hope? Can you just put your Microphone. Voice, slides are clear. The voice is not clear. There is some problem with the voice. It's breaking. There's some signal problem, I hope. Just can you put your headphones? I mean, just the mic, and then keep it your microphone nearby. Is my voice clear for you? No, the voice is completely breaking. I think there is, can you just give your mobile connections? Yeah. So hotspot connection instead of your Wi-Fi. No, you can just re-establish with your your hotspot. I'll just give a call. Just a minute.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, it's very clear now. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. You can just share your slides and go on.
Okay, next. So that was regarding OA, that is osteoarthritis. Now let's come to the RA, rheumatoid arthritis. Here, the first and foremost thing we can see is the inflammation. The inflammation and the swelling of the tissue. So the and a complete swelling of the joints. See, if you are new to immunology, you can see all the cells, whatever represented here, all immune cells. In this section, you can see cells, immune cells, T cells, and and the most important osteoclast. Osteoclast cells, lining that surround the joints. And this fiber thickens and starts inflammation, and to reduce inflammation and inflammatory cells, they start destroying the cartilage and also with inflammation. So this is the basis of arthritis. Earlier, not inflamed, process suddenly the cartilage aggravated and they start in the gap between the joints and inflammation and they can just sorry to possibility the but the course of disease what it has impacted. So this is which are
हाथ में देख के वो हो रहा है करने से क्या
like you cannot do further activities. So that is the end of this information on the disease. So this is now what is the cause? What is the cause of arthritis? The answer for this is but even today we don't know what the cause of arthritis. Just like cancer, there may be illness. There may be illness, bacteria, virus.
Hello. 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 Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Your voice is completely breaking.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Sorry. Excuse me, madam. I'm going to speak to him.
Thank you, sir.
Sits. Can you hear me? Hello? Sits, can you hear me? Hello? Sits, I think there is some problem with the voice again. The slides are visible very clear, but the voice is breaking too much. I don't know what's the problem. So, yeah, I think it's connected to the hotspot, right? Yeah. I think there may be some problem. Just put your microphone and then try. Only like your slides are clear, your image is clear. Only problem with the voice. There may be problem with the mic of the system. So maybe you can just try with the microphone. With headphone on. Sorry, I mean, then some of them are just asking that, so we'll try.
Hello, Pramod.
Hello? Hello? Sets?
Hello, is it audible now?
Yeah, Siddaraju sir, I think there is, yeah, I think just go ahead with the talk.
Pramod, now. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so now
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Now I think it's a bit better.
Yes, Pramod, I can hear you.
Yeah. Now it looks better. Your voice is clear now. You can go ahead. Hello?
No, Pramod, I can hear you.
Hello? Yeah. So can you hear my voice? Is audible? Is clear?
Even your voice is also breaking. I don't know.
Oh, I think my voice is clear in all other.
Yes, I connected to the hotspot.
There may be, because there is some problem with your network only, because my voice is clear in all other systems. It's only
No, I am using the headphone.
Okay, I think now it's better. It's better compared to the previous. You can just go ahead.
Even your voice is breaking for me.
Yeah, it's because of your problem with your network. So now I think you can go ahead with this phase. So it is okay. You can manage. You can just speed up with your. Yeah, you can just speed up.
Now, how is now?
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay now. You can just go ahead.
Is it okay? Okay, fine.
Comparatively better. Yeah. Sir, I think there is some problem at your side with the network. There is some network because my voice is clear. It seems. Yeah, you can just go ahead with a little phase. Probably they can visualize the slides. Okay, so Sits, you can do one thing.
Okay, fine.
Hello? Hello? Sits, think what we'll do is we'll mute your video. You can just speak and then we can go ahead with your phone. So your phone voice is clear. You mute your video.
Okay.
Okay, now I will talk to phone.
Yeah. So now the voice is clear.
Yes, fine. Yes, I was here at the 18th day. There is it appears inflammation. Someone, is it okay now?
Yeah. Now the voice is clear with the phone.
Yes, fine. So how it was possible? Like we injected at the tail, but the inflammation appeared at the far region. So this is what happens when the MTB enters here. The microbial antigens, those are taken up by the local macrophages and DCs, that is dendritic cells, and they are transported through the lymphatic veins or lymphatic vessels. That is, and it will reach the draining lymph nodes in the skin or in the abdomen region. So here in the lymph nodes, antigen presenting cells, they process and present the antigens to the naive T cells. And naive T cells, now it gets activated and it will become antigen specific T cells. These antigen specific T cells now go for clonal expansion, and these proliferated T cells move to the target organ. Here in this case, in rheumatoid arthritis, target organ is joints. So this is the representation. We inject here and local macrophages take up. Pardon?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can go ahead. No problem. Sidhu,
Yeah,
it's
fine.
clear. You can go ahead.
Fine. Yes. So now the lymph nodes and spleen, there the antigen processing occurs, and then the T cells are get activated and it will reach the like synovial regions. So the coordinated interplay of cytokines, chemokines, and other mediators, it will cause inflammation in the joints, and the uncontrolled inflammation may lead to bone and cartilage damage. So this is what happens when there is autoimmunity explodes. So now, before going to the result section, I just wanted to know whether bone is a dead tissue. So I don't want to explain this due to the time concern, and you may not need explanation for this also. Yes.
No, Sids, I think now with the voice is clear and everything is clear, you can go in your own phase. No problem.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Pramod. So here in this picture, if you see the red region and the blue region, which represent blood vessels, and the yellow that represents a nerve. So when there is a blood vessel and when there is a nerve, that means the tissue is a living tissue. So I don't need to explain any other thing. The blood vessels are, the bone tissue is a living and active tissue. So bone is a living active tissue that's constantly renewing itself. So old bone tissues are broken down by osteoclasts, and the new bone tissue. I can hear my voice.
Sids, mute ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
Voice mute.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ದು ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
Yeah, I have muted. But
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಪಕ್ಕ ಇದೆಯಾ?
no, nothing. You are like. So From your section, I'm getting voices.
One minute.
Okay. Now you have to, I think, from your region, I'm getting
Okay. Okay. Now it's clear.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yes. So bone is a living and active tissue, and regularly old bone tissue is broken down by a specialized cells called osteoclasts, and the process is called as resorption, and the new bone material is produced by another specialized cells called osteoblasts. And this bone remodeling is essential for homeostasis. And the remodeling process is continuous throughout your life, and bone reaches its peak mass around 20 years. Skeleton is replaced about every 10 years. So what are the cells responsible for bone? OSP, MCSF, ALP, and it also expresses osteocalcin, osteopointin, and osteonectin. So these, I'm just introducing the words so that in the next slides you can understand the actions. Pramod, is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Don't hold or mute.
Pramod?
Yeah, it's clear. You can go ahead.
Okay, fine.
Don't touch your phone.
Okay, fine. So it also expresses osteoblasts. When it matures, it will become osteocytes, which helps in mineralization. So this is the bone forming section. And osteoclast, which evades or which eats up the bone tissue or older bone tissues by producing certain enzymes and secreting certain acids. So osteoclast, it is from hematopoietic progenitor. So for this osteoclast survival, MCHF and another chemokine or cytokines, and this osteoclast expresses certain ligand or certain receptor called rank. In presence of rankle, it will become a mature osteoclast and start resorbing the bone. Osteoclast, it will have certain molecules and it will bind to the bone via actin and integrin material at the ends, and it has certain proton pumps and chloride channels through which Cl ions and H plus ions are pumped in, so that this acidic environment helps in resorption of the bone. So in general, osteoclasts will eat up the bone and osteoblasts will form new bone. So this picture representing the action, the remodeling cycle, wherein the bone forming tissue, which expresses, the osteoblast expresses rankle, and this rankle binds to the rank.
Phone cut. Just a minute. Just a minute. He'll be back.
Yes, Pramod, I am audible now?
Yeah, it's audible.
Okay, fine. I will go with this.
Yeah.
Phone got cut in between. So now these osteoblasts are the, like, this controls the action of osteoclast by producing an
Sorry for interruption. Voice is not audible.
Yeah, just a minute, ma'am. I think there is some network problem. Sets, I think phone alla ಮಾತಾಡ್ಸಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಫೋನ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Yeah, just go ahead now with the phone.
Okay, so now osteoblast has another molecule which is called as osteoprotein or OPG. So this binds to the rankle. It's a decoy receptor. Whenever osteoclastogenesis is enough, like no more bone degradation is required, that time osteoblast produces another molecule called OPG, rankle, and it's blocking this rankle so that rank receptors will not receive the rankle, and hence the osteoclast will not express the effector molecules such as this reception K, and bone resorption starts. So this rankle and OPG is a delicate balance. Whenever rank binds to the rankle, osteoclastogenesis occurs, osteoclastogenesis degradation. If rankle is OPG, then this osteoclastogenesis will be stopped. So this is the main theme of bone remodelation. So that's what I explained in the earlier slide. So now, excellent. Four groups we got: water fed and plant extract fed, and another plant molecule is injected to peritoneal cavity, and we harvested lymph node cells, spleen cells, and synovial cells on day 18th, and then these cells were cultured for 24 hours with MTB restimulation, and culture supernatant were tested for mainly bone parameters and cytokines. So the parameters which we studied for osteocalcium, it's a bone osteoblast marker. It will give the osteoblast presence, and osteoprotein, which is a chemotactic molecule. IGF, which is a bone and cartilage tissue destruction marker. And OPG, of course, it helps in bone formation. Rankle, it is the main for bone resorption. CSF, it is marker for osteoclast maturation. And the cytokines, IL-17, IL-18, IL-6, IL-1 beta, these are all pro-inflammatory cytokines which induce this rankle and activation, rankle and osteoclast activation. So this is the picture which shows a like visible cue. So in the disease control, we can see a panus formation and invasion of neutrophils and other immune cells. So this pink color is the bone, that intact bone, and this invasion is the immune cells. So in the disease conditions completed with many immune cells, and it is very clear in the treated one. So there is a synovial space between the two joints and bone is intact. So next visible cue is from the digital radiographs. We have euthanized these rats and exposed to the digital X-ray system, where we can see a radiographic assessment of arthritis in pass of the rats. So here you can see in the disease control, there is a damage in the bone joints, joint section where after treatment you can see a clear remittance. And the frontal view and the side view. In side view, you can also see the inflammation and the damaged bones. Whereas in the case of after treatment, inflammation is reduced and the intact bone. So this is a visible, but it cannot give any number data. For that numbering data, for that quantification, we went for a histomorphometry. So where in the case of histomorphometry, before we can process, we have to process with the trap staining. Trap staining is a specialized staining which stains only the osteoclast. Osteoclast, traps, and trap staining stains the osteoclast. So here in this picture you can see this after treatment the bone is completely intact. There is no osteoclast. There may be one or whereas in the case of disease control you can see many osteoclasts. This brown color are osteoclasts which are invading the bone marrow or bone tissue, and it is degrading the bone. In the next slide, you can see this is a normal bone volume, intact normal cells, and a clear joint space. Where this arthritic joint, see the huge rush of the trap positive cells. Trap positive cells are nothing but osteoclasts. So these brown color cells are the osteoclast cells. So in this picture, you can see this red mark region is the bone region, and everything else is invaded by neutrophils and other cells, and osteoclasts are eaten. So it's it's flood of immune cells. It's very highly destructive cells enter to the bone. So here you can see the clear osteoclast cells, which are ruffled border, which produces acids to this bone surface, and it will start giving up. So this you can see the islands of bone material in between. So in bone histometry is performed on the cross sections, and the analysis will give the bone volume versus tissue volume. That means how much bone volume is present in a disease condition and after treatment. So here the white columns are the disease condition and the black columns are the treated condition. You can see bone volume per tissue volume is increased, and whereas in the case of number of osteoclasts per bone perimeter, it has highly reduced after treatment, and number of osteoclasts in tissue area, in entire area, how many osteoclasts are present, which represent the activity of osteoclastogenesis. And also in the next picture, so osteoclast space versus bone surface. So how many osteoclasts are there to the osteoclast? This gives a current capacity of bone degeneration, like osteoclast still actively damaging the bone. So in the next slide, you can see the next, after this, we went for the actual immune mediator in the joint of arthritic rats, like sinual infiltrated cells were harvested on J80 from both control and also with the treated and cells were restimulated with MTB. It's like a booster dose, and then the levels of bone mediators are measured. So here you can see rankle, it is the main molecule which is responsible for osteoclastogenesis. So it has been reduced after treatment, and GM-CSF, which is very essential for survival of the osteoclast, it is also reduced after treatment, and osteocalcin, OPG, there was no much difference. There is no much significant difference between OPG. So our data says that the molecule which we use for treating is acting through the inhibition of rankle than overexpressing OPG. So IGF, which is a bone degradation marker, it is also reduced after treatment. Osteopoietin, which is responsible for osteoblast producing rankle, it is also reduced. So in this image, you can see there are bone mediators which are reduced or down-regulated after the treatment. And we measured the systemic levels of bone remodeling cytokines, same rankle, OPG, and the ratio between rankle, OPG. So all these, like rankle reduced, and in the systemic, the OPG molecules were increased, and GM-CSF also down-regulated. And rankle OPG ratio is a very important fact. That is, how many ranks are present per OPG molecules, because OPG can bind to the rankle. So how many OPG surface? In that disease condition, rankle is more compared to OPG, whereas in the case of after treatment, rankle OPG ratio has gone down. That means rankles are less compared to OPG. This is the main indication of the bone regeneration. Then bone remodeling mediators, we provided in vitro model, that is MC33 macrophage cells were stimulated with the IL-17. This is IL-17, a pro-inflammatory cytokine, which enhances the, which triggers the production of rankle and MCSF. So after 24 hours, cells were harvested and RNA was prepared and RT-PCRs were done and was tested for mRNA expression. So MCSF, it is expressed by the cells, and rankle, OPG, and IL-6, these are expressed in the supernatant. Means these are released molecules which are dissolved in the media, whereas in the case of MCSF, these are expressed from the cells. So here in the case, as expected, after treatment with cholesterol compound, we used downregulated expression of MCSF and rankle, where in the case there is no much difference in this rankle, but OPG has increased. OPG has increased after the treatment. And of course, the pro-inflammatory cytokine IL has downregulated after the treatment. So pro-inflammatory cytokines in the joints and after cracks, like this is the main cue which connects osteo cells versus immune cells. So earlier rankle, rank, OPG, those are all osteo-related or bone-related mediators, where in the case of immune cells, these IL-17, IL-6, IL-18, these are related to the immune part. So the crosstalk between these pro-inflammatory cytokines and bone mediators makes a osteoimmunology. So here also the synovial infiltrate cells were harvested on day 18 and from the immunized rats and also treated and untreated, and they were stimulated with MTB. After 24 hours, their cytokines were measured using a multiplex assay. Here you can see the IL-17 got reduced after treatment, and IL-6 also in the case of IL-1 beta, all these cytokines which are highly important in generating pro-inflammatory sequences, these got reduced. So MMP activity, which in cells and also in serum. MMP, you know, it's a powerful gelatinase enzymes which helps in migration of the osteoclast. So these, after treatment, the MMP activities got reduced, both in serum, also in the synovial infiltrating cells. So in a nutshell, the cholesterol or the compound which you use for the study, saying that induce the changes in the target organ, that is the joints. It alters the rankle OPG ratio, which is very essential for bone regeneration, and it inhibits the mediators of bone remodeling. So bone remodeling mediators are rankle, GFCSF, osteochondrin, and IGF. And also, these are triggered by IL-17 or pro-inflammatory cytokines. So this molecule has the capacity to suppress the pro-inflammatory cytokines, also the bone mediators, and also, so you can consider this as a upstream mediators which trigger the bone mediators, and these catepsin K and MMPs, these are the upstream effector molecules which acts in bone degradation. So our molecule got the capacity to inhibit or suppress the pro-inflammatory cytokines and also inhibit or suppress the activity of effector molecules such as MMPs. So in a summary, osteoblasts are helpful in bone formation, osteoclasts, those are helpful in bone resorption, and rankle, OPG, these are the main molecules involved in bone mediator or bone regeneration. And the target for therapy is inhibition of rankle. Inhibit rankle, you are controlling the bone degradation, or suppressing the expression of rank. Ranks are expressed by osteoclast. If you can suppress the expression of rank, that is also one way to reduce the bone regeneration. And if you can increase the production of OPG, so OPG is the molecule which binds rankle and stop the interaction between rankle and rank. And if you can suppress the upstream stimulators such as pro-inflammatory cytokines, TNF alpha, IL-1 beta, IL-6, IL-17, or IL-18. And also, if you can inhibit the downstream effector, as I mentioned earlier, CAT-K or MMPs. So this is a summary I'm just giving you. There are many mediators or the target molecules where you can find a medication to suppress or to increase, either increasing OPG or suppressing rank or pro-inflammatory cytokines. So in our study, our molecule got the capacity to suppress the rankle, and expression of rank and OPG was not sure, but suppression of rankle and suppression of cytokines, that is pro-inflammatory cytokines, and cataxin K, we didn't see any results in that, and whereby MMPs molecule got the capacity to suppress MMPs. So this was a study conducted in my postdoc work, and also went for the micro-CT. So really, we use the computed tomography sections of this VAD paw. So this is the disease section of the paw. You can see a degenerated tissue. So this degenerated tissue, clearly you can see where in the hair after treatment, this arthritic tissue joints got degenerated, and after treatment with celestol, you can see intact bone. So there is no degeneracy at the joint region. So that's all. At the end, I would like to acknowledge my professor in the postdoc, my mentor, Professor Kamal Morgi, who gave me an opportunity to work in this model. And Rajesh is my inspiration. He introduced me to biochemistry. Actually, I am a botanist, but Dr. Rajesh, he inspired me to take up biochemistry. And he also started his work, cytokine part. And then Dr. Shiv Prasad from University of Netherlands, he started the cytokine and chemokine work, and I took up from that, and I led into the osteoimmune part, bone mediator part. This, I thank you. I thank Dr. Pramod and his team members for providing me an opportunity to share my work. Thank you, Pramod and team.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Siddaraju. It was an excellent talk. Though there were some technical issues in the initial stages, we could able to make up and solve the issues. And then now we'll go for the question and session. The talk was very extensive. It was concentrated on osteoarthritis as well as rheumatoid arthritis and the pro-inflammatory cytokines that are influencing the development of arthritis, and then the models that has been developed to find the drug targets, and as well as the possible the remedies or the therapy approaches. And then it was very well moderated with all the slides and the talk, but there was some technical issues initially. We asked excuse from the audience on behalf of the speaker and as well as with the organizing member of Department of Biochemistry, Davangere University. Now we have few questions from the audience sides, and we'll go with the questions. And Dr. Siddaraju sir, the first questions for you is, can you differentiate between osteoporosis and osteosclerosis, and how this can be treated? Just to in case of, do you have any kind of natural Ayurvedic or diet therapy for this?
Well, osteoporosis is the porosis, the word itself, porosis, weakening of bone. The absence of calcium or phosphate intake in diet, the bone become weaker. Osteoclerosis, it will become hardened. Extensive use like calcium and phosphate, it's completely opposite to that. Sclerosis, it will become hardened, and it will like more than the bone living cells, the hardened part, installation more, and renewal of bone will stop. So due to that, the cracking or breaking of bone occurs. And regarding the Ayurvedic part, of course, exactly Ayurvedic part, I have no idea particularly. But diet part, of course, everybody knows that calcium-rich foods and the fruit and vegetables, they are the best for bone regeneration. And also the main important thing is in regarding bone, of course, you know, vitamin D is a very important material or a component. And also regular exercise is very important. You should not allow, like I mentioned in the slides, that remodeling, continuous remodeling occurs. grow, it will osteoclast, means it will regenerate and new bone grows up. There is balance. So you have to do some activities so that old bones tear and tear, and so that new bones start growing. So that's how we have to make your body constantly moving and take balanced food.
Yeah. So the other questions, like most of the speakers are asking, is because probably they had missed the introductory session. They said like there is a difference between osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. And they say like osteoarthritis is most probably seen in the older, but whereas rheumatoid arthritis is seen even with the early ages of 30, 35, 40. So, and why the rheumatoid arthritis is more serious compared to osteoarthritis?
So in the slide itself, I showed the major reason for either osteo or there is a reason for osteo, that is wear and tear through the age. As you only mentioned, arthritis gets up 60 or maybe it's going to start from 40, but it gets severity at 60. But rheumatoid arthritis, as I mentioned, there is no reason. Means we don't know the reason. Scientists still they are searching for a reason. It can start for any people or any person at any stage and at any age. So actually, the reason for rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmunity. So even a small infection, if a bacteria infects, and it to defend that, our body cells produces pro-inflammatory cytokines. So these cytokines, in the case of autoimmune, these cytokines will express overwhelmingly, and these cytokines trigger the other immune cells. Those cells start eating up our own cells. So this can be with many other parts, even the other tissues. But in the case of rheumatoid arthritis, a particular immune cell start eating up joints, and still we don't have any clear idea why it targets only joints.
Okay.
So that has to be studied in future still.
Yeah. So I think some of the audience, I mean the participants, they asked like why we don't have any kind of therapies that are available for rheumatoid arthritis in particular, and then can immunotherapy a potential possibility to tackle rheumatoid arthritis?
Yes, for the first part, there are few medications like methotrexate, that is the gold standard. But the thing is, those are targeting the pro-inflammatory cytokine, or pro-inflammatory part. If we target the pro-inflammatory part, the thing is, reduce the capacity of immune cells to defend for any other infection. That's what autoimmunity means. Our immune cells target our own cells. So for the rescue, if you start taking medication which start killing or inhibiting the inflammatory cells, then we are also like stopping the immune cells for any other external infection. So that's why the medication is very critical. So still there are many NSAID drugs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which can be used for reducing pain, and there are of course some antibody-related medications available. They're still on the trials, and we are searching for a plant material, phyto compound, which has the capacity to reduce the overexpression of pro-inflammatory cells and maintain a balance between the inflammatory and non-inflammatory balance.
Yeah.
So what was the another part?
Yeah. So the other one is like why the osteoarthritis, we don't have any targeted therapy for osteoarthritis. I think probably you had answered that in the first part itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one more very interesting questions, which is very much linked to COVID-19 treatment. That hydroxychloroquine is also a therapeutic drug for osteoarthritis or even rheumatoid arthritis as a pro-inflammatory suppressor.
Yes.
And then it is also an anti-malarial drug, means anti-parasitic. So how that you can correlate an immune suppressor to an antiviral drug?
So actually, the body, whenever infection occurs, it's an innate behavior that body will produce some inflammatory reactions. So that due to some many times more than we get problems from the inflammatory cells, our immune cells, than the infection actually. So in that case, that HCQ, of course, it's pro-inflammatory drug which helps in the calming down the inflammations, and it will due to the inflammation, that air cavity may be blocked. Due to that the breathing problems may cause a severe problem. So pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory drugs we have to use so that those things should not happen. And similar process is related to the arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. Pro-inflammation is exacerbated. So to down-regulate that, we use anti-inflammatory drugs or HCQ.
Okay. So the other question is related to the research part of your presentation. Does the plant extract used is crude, or is the plant molecule cholesterol readily available?
Yes.
So then how in osteoporosis bone can regenerate?
So osteoporosis part we did study, we are targeting on the rheumatoid arthritis. Especially in rheumatoid arthritis also, we are targeting osteoimmunology. We are targeting from the immune part, not in the bone regeneration part. So in this, we use both cholesterol and also cholesterol. So of course, cholesterol biomolecule, yes, it is available, commercial available. Cholesterol has higher impact than the cholesterol that's a crude drug.
Okay. So now the other question is the bone has an ability to regenerate after osteoporosis treatment? So if we have some kind of treatment, either by dietary supplements or some other things, the damaged bone, is that has an ability to regenerate with the increase in the population of osteoblasts or not? Just the last point, osteoblast, I am adding with the questions. So they're asked, did the bone has an ability to regenerate or not?
Well, I mentioned that till the age of 20, any break or anything, any fracture, it's very easy to remodel it. So bone cells are very active. Bone forming reaction is more active till 20 than the bone resorption. After 20, there will be balance. There will be equal, like osteoblasts, osteoclastogenesis, both are unequal. And after 40, osteoclastogenesis will take more in prime compared to the osteoblastogenesis. So any break after 40, 60, it is actually dangerous. Yes, bone remodeling do occur, but not in the pace in 3 days. So bone any bone after 60 or after 40, it is quite severe. And the osteoblastogenesis, that is osteoblast formation, it starts the bone formation, but more than the bone formation, osteoclastogenesis will be faster. So the balance will be there will be imbalance between osteoblast cells and osteoclast cells. And again, if you are in external breaks, then of course it is a dangerous condition for that. Yeah. So my conclusion is, or my view is, external damage at the early ages, it is very curable, it's very faster, and at the later ages, yes, it is curable and it will regenerate itself, but it is very slow pace, and sometimes it may halt also.
Yeah. The last question, and it is a very common question. A lot of senior participants had asked this, and I'm just concluding the summary of this. How we can manage and overcome from arthritis at the old age? Do we have a kind of diet or any kind of exercise or any kind of possible measures that you can advise that to manage and to overcome arthritis in the old age?
Okay, this is completely related to physiotherapy kind of question.
Yeah.
So diet, of course, the regular diet, whatever you are using, and more than a diet is the activity. You should not be idle for longer time. There is always constant movement. Constant movement, I mean, it's not a running or hiking or something like that after age-old people. But there should be a movement. And you have to take care of whenever, the main thing is you have to take care of your steps and the food and exposure to any external agents which can induce infection, and for that infection your inflammatory cells may be provoked and start producing pro-inflammatory cytokines or any other modes which can convert it into rheumatoid arthritis. So in a nutshell, you have to keep on moving. That's all.
Yeah. So the last questions from the student side, I think with this we are going to end the session. Why the cartilage deformations takes place during arthritis? What is the reason behind it? Why the cartilage deformation takes place?
Okay. Cartilage, see, there are many factors which affect the degradation. Deformation is degradation.
Deformation.
Cartilage.
Deformation.
Yeah. Deformation, deformation part, I don't have any idea.
Yeah, it's because thickening of, I think probably they may be interested on like the osteoarthritis in particular, where the thickening happens because of the deformation. Maybe you can add it up some information if you have on degenerations too.
Degeneration again in this, like what I mentioned, regarding the immune, it doesn't matter whether it's cartilage or whether it is a bone cell. The osteoclast just starts invading itself. It starts from the bone and from the inside out. It starts the tissues, whatever it comes in between. So it has a very beautiful capacity. First, it will go and attach to the particular tissue with integrin molecules, and then it will produce protons and Cl ions, the proton pump and the chloride ions, chloride channels, and it will create an acidic environment, and that during that acidic environment, helping other molecules such as MMPs, they help in degrading those molecules. And this particular osteoclast has another beautiful capacity. Whatever degraded materials are formed, that is calcium ions, and water molecules are formed after the degradation of bone or cartilage material, and that material will be sucked up and siphoned off of the cells, and it will throw up to the blood vessels. And in the case of cartilage or any other organic material, cathepsin K will take care of that. Cathepsin K will activate it, and it will start degrading cartilage and organic matters.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for your wonderful talk. And it was extensively covered, and probably with the question and answer, we could able to fulfill the lag that we had in the initial introductory part. So I think that also has been covered with your explanation that you had given during the question and answer sessions. So with that, we thank Dr. Siddaraju sir for accepting our invitations to be a speaker in the second session of today's national webinar series. And on behalf of Davangere University Biochemistry Department and as well as Society of Biological Chemists, Davangere branch. So I cordially thank Dr. Siddaraju sir for being with us today and sharing his extensive knowledge on arthritis, and then especially the mechanism, the causative agents, then the possible bone modulations that usually happens during autoimmune induced hyperactiveness, destructions of the bone tissues. So this extensive view probably provided a very good feast for all the audience that are present here. So with that, I'm going to conclude today's session. Thank you so much, and thanks for being with us. Thank you, Siddaraju sir.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the technical. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.